lives.
It is Wednesday, the 15th of March, 2023. Good morning and karibu sana. This is the Mid-Morning Park right here on MBC ITV, your weekly show where we bring you current affairs and analyze and make sense of what is happening in the country and even in the society. My name is Mangicho Mola. It's good to have you, Bwana Paul Kagi, today.
Yes, good morning, Mangicho, and how are you?
Good morning too. We are doing well.
Yeah, it's a fine Wednesday, and we're starting the week when we have some rains in most part of the country.
Yes.
And farmers are working on out things to be able to start their work in their farms. We are most thankful to God for the rains that are coming in our country. Welcome to the Mid-Morning Park. My name is Paul Kagi. Continue being with us this morning.
Of course, and there has been a beehive of activities over this past 1 week, and of course we're going to look at quite a number of them. But today we want to major on two main areas. That is the call for mass action by the opposition, the call for mass action by the opposition. That is what we will be discussing, and we will also later on be looking at security operation in the Rift Valley and also in some other parts in the country, security operation especially in the North Rift or in the Rift Valley, and also in some other parts in the country. Later on we'll be joined by a guest, that is Bwana Joseph Omondi, who is a political analyst and also a governance expert, and also the director Mid-Rift Harinet, and he'll be here to help us look at these particular areas in details. And of course, we are asking you today, the question that we want to ask you is, what is your view or what is your feeling on the call by the opposition for mass action? What is your view? What are your opinions on the call by the opposition for mass action? You can begin to interact with us during this particular conversation. You can catch us live on our social media pages, that is Facebook, MBC ITV. Catch us also on YouTube, that is MBC ITV official, and our shortcut platform, that is 23814. We'll be glad to sample and also see how you respond to some of these particular issues that we'll be looking at in this particular show today. But before that, Kagi, like I had mentioned, there has also been some other issues that have taken place during this 1 week.
Yes, correct. There are some issues that we are going to check on what has been happening the last 1 week, even today. And I think one of the main issue, Mangicho, we need to look at the issue of our unga prices. But yesterday, the millers were with the parliamentary committee to be able to explain some 1 or 2, 3 issues. Yes. And one of the revelations that was made yesterday is that the millers are now, in the next 2 weeks, might be closing down their businesses because of lack of this grain. And they were saying that there is a shortage of maize, not only in Kenya, but also in the region, even in the continent, and even in some other parts of the world. As I heard the DP talking, he said that even some countries, they don't have maize to be able to export. So it's a double tragedy for us. If you cannot even, we have some money to be able to buy maize, but again, the maize is not available. Yeah. So we might get some hike in flour more than expected, yeah, because of lack of maize. If you hear that the millers are closing their businesses, and it is being said even the smaller ones, they have already closed. And the worst is that in Eldoret, the millers are saying in the next week, the area that we rely on in terms of maize, they are saying in the next 2 weeks, they don't think they will have something to be able to provide to us, right?
Eldoret being the brain basket.
Yes.
Ngisho and Trans Nzoia, the brain basket of the country. And I think this, as you've said, is going to be a major story, considering that most of the Kenyans, or most of our people, most of the citizens are now facing starvation because of the harsh economic times. But Kagi, just recently, most of these farmers were crying out foul that they still have a lot of maize, and they were not in support of the government importing maize. So when you're talking about shortage of maize, are we saying maize that is yet to go to the millers, or maize that is not even in the farmers' stores?
I think there is something that has not yet come out clear properly, the issue of farmers in that region. We don't know whether they are holding their grain or they sold their grain. No one is speaking on their behalf. What we know, the millers receive grains from maybe NCPB or maybe from farmers. Farmers are mum regarding to this issue.
Yes.
They have a tendency of holding the maize to wait for the price to hike.
Sure.
So I'm not sure whether they still have that maize in their stores or they sold it long time ago. But NCPB has said there's zero emergency maize in their storage. We're supposed to have maize for emergency, yeah?
Exactly.
And unga being one of our staple food here, things are not good as we may think. Huh? Yeah, but before we continue,
yes,
we must come up with a solid solution regarding to the issue of our maize in our country.
Right.
Yes, the government is talking about irrigation, building dams is one of the areas I think they can also venture in strongly to be able to come up with a way of irrigating our farms. And we have enough land, yeah, to be able to do this work, that we may say enough is enough.
Okay.
We don't rely on our farmers only to feed our nation, because our country, I think the population is surging now and then.
Yes.
We should not rely on our farmers to feed our nation. The government or even the private sector, we should come up with a formula, like a partnership between the national government, the Ministry of Agriculture, and some private enterprises to be able to do some farming in some idle land in the country, right?
Yeah.
We can also have some piped water, because we have enough water in the country. We can dig mini boreholes purposely for irrigation, but it has taken too long, Yeah.
Sure. As Kagi, you've rightly put it, I think that is something that really needs to be looked into, especially during this particular time. Of course, as you started, you'd said we've seen quite a number, some rains across some parts in the country, but this is also coming at a time when our meteorologists and the weatherman has already said that these rains might not be relied upon, especially for those who may want maybe to depend on them for growth of maize and other key plantations that maybe Kenyans depend on, especially for food surplus in the country. So it is very important, because that basically means that we might be facing a very difficult situation or very harsh times if these rains maybe may not be enough. I think this is something that the government really needs to put into consideration. This is also the week where we saw some intrigues concerning the former Internal Security Minister, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, in regards to a case that was about some police officers allegedly had gone to do some raid in his home, but then now it's like the police officers and the security department, they were accusing him of actually peddling rumors and actually false information regarding to that particular matter. But as we speak, we saw again the DCI come with information and statement that that particular case has been dismissed. And also we also saw this coming in a period whereby we also saw a flurry of activities and meetings regarding this, or actually involving the then Minister for Internal Security, that is Dr. Fred Matiang'i. So I know last week we talked about this particular issue, and I think it is coming out again, the independence of some of our critical institutions, like the office of the DPP, because now one wants to wonder, so what do we mean when this particular case is now being told, or we are now being told that the DCI has dropped this particular case? So what is it that had really happened? Had the police made this particular raid in Dr. Matiang'i's home, or what is it that had really taken place? Maybe Kenyans will not be in a position to know.
Yeah, I think, as you're saying, even though the DPP dismissed that case, we would have known what happened, what transpired, who spoke the truth among the two, the police or the Mr. Matiang'i, you know? Yeah, because again, we need to, the DPP needs to come out clear and prove the independence of his institution. Again, if maybe some papers would have maybe written Matiang'i decides to toe the line.
Yeah.
So we are waiting to see whether he is planning to toe the line. Some papers reported this week that the case was dismissed after the talks between the president and 3 prominent Kisii region politicians who had a talk with the president. I don't know whether it is correct, but one thing we know is that the case is dismissed, and the president is expected to tour that region towards the end of the week. And Matiang'i had also planned to do some prayer rally within that region also. And therefore, we want to see what happens. But the big question is there has been a very, very, very interesting trend whereby DPP is dropping many cases, and this has never been witnessed there before. And who is not doing his job?
Sure.
Is it DPP or police? And what we are aware is that police investigate a matter, they forward the file to the DPP. So who is sleeping on his or her job among the two?
Sure.
Right?
I think that is a question that most people will want to find out, and as you've said, because now people want to find out whether some of these cases maybe were politically instigated, because how comes that a case is just dropped? Does it mean that maybe the DPP or even the DCI had not collected enough evidence? And of course, if we see maybe somebody like now Matiang'i maybe joining President William Ruto and his itinerary when they visit Kisii, what would people read? Okay, would people read maybe that because now they've joined hands, or because maybe they've come to agreement, that is what maybe triggered the dropping of those particular cases? Maybe that is something that Kenyans will want to find out.
All right. And there was another story that is making headline regarding to the IEBC. Yesterday, the IEBC former commissioner, Marjan Hussein, was grilled by a parliamentary commission regarding to there were some documents, equipments that got stolen from the IEBC poll kits in Kisumu region that contained some important data. And he went there to be able to explain how did we lose those equipments, what billions of shillings, and they were having some crucial IEBC data. And Marjan had a difficult time to be able to explain to the committee what transpired, you know. Yeah, I think the question also revealed that this document got lost in the areas where the opposition leader, Raila Odinga, is perceived to be his stronghold, right? And
you know, I've seen that story, Kagi, and my question was, why is this information coming too late? Why was this information, why didn't this information, because I think, or maybe is it something that they've just realized that the equipment was stolen? Have they realized now, or is it something that they had realized just prior to the August elections? And why was that information not brought to the public then? Okay.
Yeah, me, I feel it was known by those who are concerned, but it was never made public.
Okay.
You know, now the parliament is strong, is trying to follow up some matters. They have the mandate, they have the power to be able to pursue issues. I think now they have decided to be able to put everything on the table. You know, losing billions of shillings through some equipments being stolen is not something very simple, because they were saying it's as if there is a trend whereby some people, when it comes to election, can be able to plan that equipment can be stolen for their own benefit.
Okay.
I think some people will want to make money out of here. Yeah.
It seems the ghost of IBC is still going to be with us for quite some time. Coming at a time when we also have the debate over the selection of the new team for the IBC, the commissioners and also the chairman. And this is an exercise that is going on despite the fact that the opposition has raised and vehemently opposed it. So we are wondering, but the government and the president is adamant that things have to continue.
Yes.
So I don't know who is going to be the first one to blink.
On the same, there has been an issue which is under contention.
Yes.
The issue of the constituting the IEBC commissioners. We know the president and the Kenya Kwanza are saying, I think the end of this week, last week, the president said, I cannot break law by allowing you guys to come and constitute the IEBC commissioners. Yes, the law was passed in parliament 2 months after the Kenya Kwanza joined the government. And this law passed that we must have a panel to be able to select the IEBC commissions. And now the other side of the Azimio is questioning why in a hurry to be able to constitute or maybe to pass laws to be able to have the IEBC commissioners in place. So there's some contention there. And Kenya Kwanza are saying, no, we must follow the law.
Sure.
Yeah.
And of course, I think at this particular point, we can now introduce our guest for the analysis of our two main areas of conversation. And remember, you can still continue giving us your opinions and also your reflections on this particular discussion, the issue of the call for mass action by the opposition in regards to quite a number of things in the country, and also later on looking at the security operation. And our guest this morning is Bwana Joseph Omondi, who is a political and governance expert and also analyst. Karibu sana, it's good to have you this morning.
Asante sana.
Please.
Yeah.
Things
are tight.
Things are tight.
Yeah, things are tight, but we keep going.
Yes, we keep going. Karibu sana, thank you so much. And I know I've already mentioned and highlighted the two main areas, but from the brief analysis we've done with Kagi, maybe you can pick one or two, and maybe you may want to share with us what your feelings are. For example, the issue of shortage of unga, the issue of Matiang'i intrigues, and the IBC data, and the equipment that is was allegedly stolen. What are your feelings about that?
I'll start with the IBC CEO, Marijan, about the revelation that several laptops and several registers from the IBC were stolen by rogue staff. You know, he's the CEO. So technically, he's in charge of the secretariat and all the staff in the entire country.
Yeah.
So when he comes to us and tells us about these things being lost, what is he telling us? Because IBC is quite a funded institution that provide that the vital data, our data, because there's a data protection law. When somebody is with my data outside there, I don't know how they use that data.
Sure.
You see, that's already an infringement of the data protection law.
Okay.
Secondly, those rogue officers, whom are they working for? And these are the people who will come later and say also they are whistleblowers. Then it's convoluted. Then there's a conversation outside the framework of our own way of resolving conflict. So it's a sad day. In fact, if it's in maybe a country, in Asian country, somebody will resign because maybe they failed in their duty to protect our data.
Right.
So it's a sad day. So action must be taken and people must be sanctioned. For being careless about this. We don't want a situation in Kenya where people commit atrocities, then we just pepper it off.
So it's not just a matter
no. This is serious.
Disclosing that this had happened.
This is serious.
It needs to be followed.
This is serious.
Yeah, this is crime.
I'm just talking in the context what Kagi talked about. Right now, there's a rumor there was a whistleblower of whom we didn't see in the Supreme Court. I get to the point.
Yeah.
The Swahili say sembuse haya vitu ambayo amepotea.
Yes.
Sijui kama tunaelewana? Who are these rogue officers reporting to? Because it's just not, if you just steal a register, there's no monetary value for that register. You cannot sell it, but you can use it. You see? You can give it to some politician, the politician will use it in any other way. You see? So this is a serious issue. So if we go back to the issue of the shortage of maize, and I like what Kagi talked about, what is the way forward? Because we have really relied on the rain-fed agriculture, and we are seeing the issue about climate change.
Yes.
We need to change tact. We need to change tact. The second thing is, as a country, we used to have something called strategic grain reserves that the government puts aside. It mops the grains from the farmers so that the farmers get their dues. The government have the bulk grain reserves. It's a strategic thing because this staple food is a security issue. Because if you are not fit here, you I can't sleep if I have. So it's a grain strategic reserve where we mop the maize because, as Mangicho said, the farmers a few months ago were crying. And they were being told, uzeni hiyo mahindi yenu kama GMO haijafika.
Yeah, and if you fail to,
You
don't
see?
blame us.
So the farmers gave up because the cost of producing 90 kg of maize was quite high because of the inputs. The cost at which the government wanted these particular farmers to release their maize, walikuwa wanaona wanaenda hasara.
Yeah.
You see? So they looked for their own alternative ways. They gave up with the government. That's why our silos are empty. You see? So we don't know even if where this maize now is, as you have rightly put, they still have it. You see? Because the weatherman has said there will be short rains, so you must make sure that ile mahindi unapanda ni ile ya msimu mfupi. 3 months, then it grows. No, we don't know if those seeds are there, or the current seeds that the farmers have. Ni hizo za msimu mfupi ama ni upi?
Even some silos are closed, like in Nakuru.
Yeah, exactly.
They are now operating like recreation sites.
Exactly. So, what we want to ask government, what happened to the strategic grain reserves that were there initially? Because I remember the government after Iyo Njaya, 82, 83, 84, until the former President Moi had to go to the US. When he went to the US, he was told we don't have white maize there. Akaambiwa iko yellow maize. Akasema hata hiyo watu wangu watakula lete. After that, the government now started having a strategy of the strategic grain reserves. You see, they could mop from the farmers. Ulikuwa ukienda KGGC hapa mahindi imejaa. So in a crisis like this, we don't beg grains from USAID. You know, this is a very embarrassing scenario.
And even I have heard there is a proposal to be able to bring again the maize.
Yeah, in fact,
that's where we are heading to.
In fact, if you had Gachagua clearly, and he was very, very clever of how he put it. He said, we don't want these people making other feeds for the animals to compete with the white maize.
Okay.
So we are bringing the yellow maize. But this yellow maize is quite nutritious, so you guys also can take it. That's how he said when he was being interviewed recently. So technically, the yellow maize is coming. And it's not bad. Ni mahindi mzuri. So the issue here is, the government is failing as one. We cannot be having a Ministry of Agriculture currently that is structured the way it's structured. We need to have another model. We need to have another model. We tried the Gulana Kulalu, there was corruption. We didn't get the yields that was.
But it is back.
It is back. Let me hope now they will do the right thing. The issue about strategic grain reserve, we need to think about it in future. How do we go about it? The other thing is, as I finish on this topic, it's high time as a country we go for awareness that we need to diversify our staple food. Over-reliance on maize will bring us a problem.
And where do we start from? Is it a question? Because it has looked like this, Bonamondi, the need for Kenyans to actually diversify. It has looked as if it's becoming a very difficult thing. What are some of the challenges, or what is it that needs to be done?
The challenge is that the alternatives become expensive to a common person. Because unga traditionally has been a little bit affordable, traditionally. So the alternative is rice. If you compare a kilo of unga and rice, you find that rice is a little bit higher.
Yes.
You see? If you compare the alternatives, for example, matoke,
very common in our neighbor, Uganda.
Yeah, it's common for that's their staple food. And how many farmers do farm matoke? So if all of us go to matoke, then there will be another shortage on the same. So how do we get the alternatives? Because, for example, where I come from, we have millet, we have even unga ya muhogo. You see? So there is a diversity of those other things.
Not
and
the white maize.
Sometimes we diversify. Sometimes people eat ugali ya muhogo, unga ya muhogo, the cassava. And the cassava can grow even in some of the areas that do not have a lot of rain.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a conversation that we need also to have, because this is not sustainable, because let us be honest, maize came from, was it from Latin America or whatever, because maize is a Portuguese word. Yeah, so we didn't have it.
It is not Africa.
Yeah, it's not Africa. Maize, yeah. The millet and cassavas are African staples. So we need to find a way of getting that. But more fundamentally, the fate of our farmer needs to be addressed. Because our farmer, who should be feeding us, at least, if there is something called the subsidies, should go to the farmer. That's the only point where I agree with our president. Let us subsidize production. Now we want to see that subsidy to the farmer.
Yes, and the government is planning to, I think, to build, is it 100 dams per year?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
So do you think that is one of the long-term plan to be able to
plan,
have?
and in fact, when I heard about the Aurora and Kimwaret dams coming back, that's the long term. Because if over-reliance on the rain-fed agriculture is not sustainable with the unpredictable weather patterns currently, because even traditionally, Kagi and the Mangicho, we have lost our season of planting certain crops because of climate change.
Sure.
And this is something that will continue. Yeah.
Sure, this is something that will continue. And I think that is fair enough for those particular areas. And of course, now we want to get into the big elephant in today's discussion, Bonamondi, and that is the call for mass action by the opposition. Now, Kenyans want, first of all, and maybe if there is something that people really want to know, because this is something that we've seen, the opposition. And of course, there are quite a number of rallies that have already been done.
Yeah.
And maybe most people will want maybe to agree that they have been peaceful. But even as we continue with this rallying call for this kind of mass action, are we still going to experience the tranquility that we've had?
What I can say is that from the onset that, of course, the freedom to assemble, demonstrate, picket, and send petition to authorities is anchored in our Constitution, Article 37.
Right.
It's anchored there. The danger here is that the language being used in the rallies infringes on that article. The language that is used in the rallies.
Okay.
You see? The language that is used in the rallies is a language of radicalization. You are radicalizing your supporters in a way to harm others who are not agreeable to your modus operandi. You get the point? So that's the danger that I'm seeing. One is, to be honest right now, the Azimio supporters, they don't know where they will assemble and demonstrate and send petition on Monday, as we speak today. I've read to you the article.
Yes.
Article 37, freedom to assemble, wakuje mahali kongamano, waanze demonstration, unaelewa?
Yes.
Wapicket, na watume hizo petition kwa authorities. That's what the article is talking about. Because your demonstration and picketing should be directed to an authority.
In this case, the authorities.
The authorities is now the national government, which is led by the executive, which is led by the president.
Okay.
For example, there's an issue about security, and I'm picketing from what we call railways, Kenyatta Avenue. I'll go to the county commissioner's office because he's the chairman of security in Nakuru County.
Yes.
Yeah, he's the person mandated to speak on behalf of security in the county.
Okay.
You see? So it's a security issue. Yes. If it's an issue about that involves the issue about devolution, I know I'll go to Madam Susan's office because it touches on the mandate under the purview of the 14 functions
just
of the county.
Just a little bit, Bwana Omondi, don't lose that chain of thought. We want to take a short break. You're still watching the Mid-Morning Pack. We are unpacking these things. We are coming back after this.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Kajiado County, Kitengela, Missions to the Body of Christ International, MBCI, in conjunction with Kitengela Pastors Fellowship, invites you to Possessing the Promise of Revival Conference from 13th till 19th of March 2023, daily from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at Kitengela Stadium inside the mega tent. Join thousands in anointed sessions of prayers, praise, worship, and impartation through the Word of God, ministered by Apostle John Kemani William. Lord, I have heard of your fame. I stand in awe of your deeds, Lord. Repeat them in our day. In our time, make them known. In a wrath, remember mercy. Habakkuk chapter 3, verses 2. Remember, we shall be having a mega kesha on Friday from 9:30 p.m. Praise and worship sessions will be led by Kingdom Seekers Fellowship. Possessing the Promise of Revival Conference is an interdenominational meeting, free and open to all.
Vipasuo vitatu kwenye lugha ya Kiswahili ni gani?
Rekete rekete rekete. Rekete rekete rekete.
Hey! Chinekeme!
Sauti mbili kwenye lugha ya Kiswahili ni gani gani?
E na U.
Eh?
E na U.
Kivoromoko dadangu inamaanisha nini?
Mahali kafu.
Hivi Mungu wangehukumu kwa kusikiza umbea.
Umbea kabisa.
Mchungaji wangu ufunge kanisa.
Wachana na funga kanisa.
Damu shida ni ulimi. Ungejifunza.
Wachana na ulimi. Hautagonjeka ukimwi.
Uasin Gishu County, get ready for revival. Apostle Julius Subi of Highway of Holiness Ministries International, in conjunction with Uasin Gishu County clergy, pastors and bishops, invite you to the Revive Kenya Now Prayer Awakening Summit, ministering Apostle Julius Subi.
God is bringing you in a sure place. Where God is bringing you, you cannot be pulled down. He's bringing you on a rock.
Guest music minister Israel Ezekiel. Guest speaker Apostle Charles B. Gone.
For somebody else, breakthrough is to get married. I mean, we all need breakthrough, breaking through some obstacles, some challenges in life.
Dates from the 21st to the 26th of March 2023. Venue Central Primary Ground, the Tax Center, Eldoret Town. The long-awaited revival is now. Time from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. daily. Don't miss. For more information, contact 0723 689 745. Revival now.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
You're welcome back. You're still watching the Mid-Morning Pack. Thank you so much for making time to be with us. We are talking about the call for mass action by the opposition. And later on, we'll also be in a position to discuss the security operation in parts of the North Rift or Rift Valley and also some other parts in the country. And the question that we are asking you can continue giving us your reflections on these. What are your views or what are your opinions? What do you feel about the call for mass action by the opposition? And on set, we are joined by Bwana Joseph Omondi, who is a political and governance expert and also analyst trying to make sense, help us make sense of what is happening in our country. And of course, we'll be glad to continue sampling what your reflections are. Karibu sana tena Bwana Omondi. We were continuing with that particular discussion and you are giving us the highlights about, yes, it is true, the opposition, or there is the freedom for freedom of expression, picketing, but of course, where do we draw the line? Because if we can go by the experiences of this particular country, past experiences is that maybe we've seen calls like this, which turned out to be chaotic, and people are wondering, are things going to be different this time round?
That's why I said, I first said that what they're calling about is anchored in law.
Mm.
Now, the issue is the how.
Okay.
They have told us the what. The what is about mass action. How to go about that mass action is the elephant.
It's the elephant. That is what
I've said. You know, the architecture of the Constitution, when it was being designed,
right,
it was very, very clear that we have given you these articles, very, very progressive, because Article 37 is one of the articles in the chapter of Bill of Rights.
Okay.
And the Bill of Rights in our Constitution is the most progressive. I've walked the entire, the parts of the world where anybody hearing about Kenya, you have a very fantastic constitution.
Okay.
So we should go what Professor Okoth Ogendo used to tell us in Nairobi University. You will one day have a constitution, but we will struggle with constitutionalism. Yeah. That's what he used to tell us. So we are struggling with constitutionalism.
Yes.
You see, anything you do under the purview of any article, including that Article 37, must promote the spirit and the letter of that article. Which means you assemble peacefully, unarmed. That article, there is peacefully and unarmed when you are assembling.
Yes.
Maybe the only thing you can have is your petition, because at the end of the day, that petition you have to give it to a certain authority to act upon it.
Yes.
You see, right now, what I'm hearing from the grapevine.
So this is, we are not sure whether this is what the opposition wants to do, as you put it.
Because they have not been told where they are taking the petition.
They're taking the petition?
The grapevine in social media, they are going to State House. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
No, Omondi, yesterday, as I could hear Karua clearly, it's like they have declared how they are going to do it. Maybe what is lacking at this juncture is where they will be meeting. But after meeting, I think they have declared how they are going to go about it, because they are saying, after we meet, we must go and see the president in State House. That means, because you have said after you demonstrated, you have your petition, you have to go and give it to an authority. By my interpretation, maybe they want to take their petition to the head of state in his official...
You know, there's something called political speak. And in political speak, I heard yesterday Raila in Siaya talking in vernacular. In Siaya, because that's home. So he was talking in vernacular. I'm going to face the crocodile. And if you don't come with me, the crocodile will eat me. So if somebody is unarmed peacefully taking a petition, why will we talk about a crocodile? That's one. Yes. Two, the issue here is the office of that authority where they are going is Harambee House. It's not State House. Because very important official functions, even if you remember the first handshake with the Kibaki, it was done where? Harambee House.
Sure. You want to say State House is not an official...
It's official, but now when we come to issues, to issues like this, where have you seen them being done? We're just following a precedent. You see? It's where the president comes, because one of the things that happen is State House, if, for example, that's what they are going to do, that's now bloodshed. And that's the problem that we are going to have. Because the bloodshed here will not be the son of Kalonzo, will not be the daughter of Karua, or the son to, it will be the Walalahois who will become collateral damage.
And the president has never gone to Harambee House the last since he was inaugurated. So he rarely, you rarely find him in Harambee House.
Even Kibaki was just going there for official things like the ones I've told you. For official things like the one I've told you.
Yes.
But let us go back to the Jamini issue here. The Jamini issue here is that we don't want Azimio leaders to put in harm's way their supporters. Because storming State House, that's bloodshed. Because the moment there is an election, and by any other means, there's an announcement on the same, then the next step, we go to the judiciary. They make a determination. To remove that somebody in State House is not through mass action. Because if you do that, that's bloodshed, of which we are against. And you remember yesterday, the church came out quite strongly. And I hope Raila listened to the church yesterday. Because if he could listen to the church, sit down with the church, even the church now can find a way of reaching the president. Because the president respects the church.
But Wanamondi, maybe and this is where now we come to the issues being occasioned, or the issues that have actually
brought about the mass action.
The mass action.
Yes, that's important issue you are raising. Yes. Now let us go back now to the global recession that we are having. This thing is not unique to Kenya. And if you have been keen enough, you guys are journalists, you are good researchers. This is not the first demonstration about issues about the cost of living. Even in Europe, it has happened. Even in Europe, it has happened this year. Not even the other year, this year. Because Russia and Ukraine apparently have been producing the bulk of the grains to feed this part of the world, and including even the other parts of the world. Apparently, the issue about that war has also occasioned the issue about the petrodollar issues. You see? Now, this is compounded by a situation whereby the previous government also, you see, we went a lot in debt to put infrastructure in place. You see? So we over budgeted and we didn't have a lot of resources, so we went a lot in debt. This conversation about the cost of living cannot be solved in a street. This conversation can be solved in our parliament. Because it's our parliament that does the budget, including the budgets that were being approved to give the former president to go and seek for those particular resources to plug in the gaps of the budget.
And Bonomoli,
it was discussed in parliament.
The parliament you're talking about is what most Kenyans want to say, that it is an extension of the executive. So is the executive having a conversation with itself?
You know, the problem that I normally also have with the Kenyans is that when we were writing the constitution and giving them the rights, there was an assumption that we have an informed voter. So we have an informed voter. Because what happened is, Article 1 was not written in vain. I remember, because I attended some of the sessions in Bomas, and even followed in some of the tents in Naivasha here. Article 1, it was a big issue. Article 1 being framed the way it is in the Constitution, it was a big issue. Had it not been for Professor Ashpal Guy, it could not have been framed the way it is.
Which says,
all sovereign power
belongs to the people.
Belongs to the people. And the people with that power, they will exercise it at the two levels.
Yes.
Either directly
or indirectly.
Or indirectly through
Through the
their
elected-
democratically elected leaders.
Yeah.
Democratically elected?
Leaders.
Now, if
So,
you
of
have decided to delegate that power through an election
Yes.
and given somebody called a member of parliament, a senator, and a governor,
Yes.
please don't come and tell me about those people have been don't tell me about that. because where were you to do the vetting? Because when you ask a common voter during elections, they will tell you, Jama hachotagi, he has no money. You get the point. So
Yeah.
the parameters when we choose leaders are different.
Yes.
So let us not again now start crying, because we must put a very high threshold of somebody we are delegating that power.
But what you're saying here is the issue of the parliament having been influenced by the executive, so that now we may not really see the independence that maybe is supposed to be there. We don't have maybe the minority voice in the parliament as it is supposed to maybe to be, because even when we were in the election, there were so many MPs maybe who were perceived and actually who maybe were hard to be actually in the opposition, but as we speak today, they're in bed with the executive.
Now, that's a good point. How many of us, about 290 constituencies, have we now assembled unarmed and peacefully, wrote a petition, and do a demonstration in the member of parliament's office
Yes.
about this conversation? Why are you guys compromised? Because, you know, I've told you about the architecture of the constitution. People are very careful about previously, the executive had a lot of powers, or even dictate parliament, make decisions. So what do we do? Government, the national government has a lot of power, and that's why it's distributing resources in a skewed manner.
Yeah.
So what we decided, our national budget must be discussed by the people we delegated and agreed upon. When nowadays I hear people going to State House for development, I don't understand. I don't understand. Which development are we discussing that we did not discuss in Parliament? Same. Because the president has no alternative resources. Yeye pia anabajetiwa tu yake executive.
Right.
All resources, tuna budget inabakia mambo ya treasury, na you control our budget mwenye siku hizi anatoa pesa kiholela, nitakuona, yeah. So those are the
there is no any law
ambazo nitakuona kulingana na vile tuliongea kuhusu budget yetu. Na tukapeana migao.
Are you saying all these groups of MPs we've seen in State House does not necessarily mean that we're going to see anything in their constituency?
What happened is that they will get, because what happened, you have said it right. The moment you allow the executive again to come and dictate the things that you have agreed upon, so the executive will just be calling the waziri, Mangicho from constituency called Humusalapa was here. And you know that guy has a lot of social capital.
Yes.
That he can bring from in our camp. So look, ways of, there was a barabara from Humusalapa to somewhere there, Luanda.
Yes.
That is incomplete. So prioritize that road.
Okay.
You see? For example, let me give you an example. When the previous government was leaving, we were promised Rironi to Mau Summit.
Yes, yeah.
This government has come and has not prioritized that. You see? Has not prioritized that.
Sure.
But I do know those resources has gone somewhere to build some social capital for 2027. You see? Yes. So this is what I'm discussing about, because Parliament have abdicated their duty, because you cannot sit down, discuss the budget. Because let me be honest with you, because I've been a PA to Waheshimiwas, I've been a manager to Waheshimiwas, I know what happens in that parliament. Our members are poor in scrutinizing documents.
Okay.
They are lazy. You see? So they don't scrutinize the document. 90% of the time of a member of parliament in Nairobi, he's looking for favors, tenders, and other things not related to what you took him or her to Nairobi.
Yeah.
You see? So we should also use this constitution and tell them, this is how you need to serve us. In fact, this picketing, to me, should be directed to the members of parliament and the senators.
Yes.
You see?
For not doing
Because they
their
have
job.
abdicated their duty.
Right.
Yeah, because only the discussion we can do here about lowering the cost of living, because recently they were talking about the supplementary budget, which they have passed. Why have they passed the supplementary budget? Because CDF was ilipewa kipaumbele, because walipitisha kwa sababu CDF ilikuwa hapo.
Yes.
Unaona? Now they come here and again tell us the cost of living. You see, there's no miracle that the State House can do now. Ushika. It's the resources we have and the mechanism of coming up with the solutions. Those solutions ni watu kukaa meza duara na kujadiliana na kupata mwafaka. Just the same way.
So you talked about, of course, the right that the Kenyan voter has been given to democratically elect their leaders. That is, but you had also said that we are also given in the Constitution the power. Okay, so which is that other power that they can?
The power that we have been given is this: the recall clause.
Okay.
If you are a member of parliament or a senator or any other leader that you have chosen, including the MCA, has not performed well, you see, Article 108, have not performed well, you have the power to recall them. You see, you have also the power to say, now, my member of parliament has failed, my president has failed. Do you know you have a right to petition parliament?
Okay.
You see? For example, if there's a certain committee in parliament, you petition and you will be heard.
Yes.
In fact, live, you will be heard in Nairobi. You see? You will be heard.
And we've never seen any member of parliament being recalled.
Yeah,
ever since
it's because we're investing a lot. What happened is, nilikula pesa ya mheshimiwa wakati ya campaign. Nilikuwa na courage kwani kumface ati na recall. You see?
Just a few people do that.
Yeah, so the issue here is that we need now to exercise that power. That's why I'm saying we were given powers that we are not taking action to actualize that power.
Yeah, and Mangicho, before we continue,
yes.
It's like Omondi, you are trying to say that instead of the Azmio, following the mass action route, they have a better alternative way to be able to pursue their grievances through parliament. My question is, number one, do you think the Kenya Kwanza or the president is really genuine regarding to the members of parliament, whether in the National Assembly or Senate, working with him? Like today I was saying that he is now working with 8 senators and from Nyanza region. Do you think it's out of good faith that he is doing that? Number two, do you feel our parliament is independent enough to be able to petition the government to look on some issues?
Yeah, one of the things that I have to say is that the president is a very smart politician. A very, very smart politician, and what he has decided, because I heard you talking about Matiang'i, the president is due to visit Gusiland soon. And the tribulations that Matiang'i underwent had created a very toxic environment for him to visit Gusiland. So the first thing was to find a way of influencing, unfortunately, some of the institutions of the criminal justice system to drop the case, which is quite unfortunate. This is my perception. I might be wrong or right. Now, having done that, of course, now there are certain members of parliament and senators in that region, whether current or former, that he is now coalescing around to make sure that even if I don't get the entire Nyanza, because the majority of the entire Nyanza is still with the Raila, but if I get a quarter, that is enough for me to create a base, and technically I will have weakened his base, because that's a vote I normally don't get.
Weaken his base and still maintain my base.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the strategy that he's using. In politics, we cannot talk about genuineness, because politics is what works for me. It's not works for you. So that's working for him, and that's what he's doing. At the end of the day, that narrative about mutapata maendeleo, that's what I'm against, because we should demystify that the president no longer the Father Christmas. Kulingana na hii katiba. Tunaelewa? Because he's infringing on other people's mandate, of which to us, we are not living under the constitution that we authored together. Because when we allow him to do that, then of course we are going back where the head of the state was the guy with the yam and the knife.
Okay. Good. I want us to get into or actually interact now with our reporter, that is Vincent Kimutai. He always goes to the streets and also gets some opinions from Kenyans on the subject of our discussion. And let us hear what Kenyans are also saying, or what is their opinion concerning this particular issue, the call for mass action by the opposition. Vincent Kimutai, take us to the streets.
Shukran sana Mangicho Mola pamoja na Paul Kagi mkiwa upande wa pili wa studio. Na kama vile ambavyo mmeweza kusema ni kwamba viongozi wa Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance wakiongozwa na kiongozi wao Raila Odinga wamekuwa wakizuru kaunti mbalimbali hivi karibuni, hasa maeneo ya Nyanza pamoja na maeneo ya pwani ya Kenya, wakiwarai wa Kenya kuhudhuria kongamano ya kitaifa ambao imepangiwa kufanyika siku ya Jumatatu tarehe 20 jijini Nairobi, katika lengo la kushinikiza serikali kupunguza gharama ya maisha. Lakini katika siku ya hivi karibuni, hasa siku ya Jumatatu pamoja na siku ya Jumapili, tuliona wazee kutoka Luo pamoja na wazee kutoka jamii ya Masai pamoja na viongozi wengine nchini wakielezea haja ya Raila Odinga kutumia njia mbadala ya kuwasilisha shinikizo lake kwa serikali. Na leo hapa tuko hapa tukizungumza pamoja na Wakenya. Je, wao wanaona ni vyema Raila kuandaa maandamano au kutumia njia mbadala ya kuwasiliana na rais au kuzungumza na rais?
Maandamano mimi naweza sema iwache ifanyike. Kwa sababu ya nini? Tunaumia. Kitambo maandamano ifikie mwananchi. Rais wetu tulichagua kama rais, yuko wapi? Saizi wengine hawajakula, wengine wanalala njaa, wanaamka njaa. Ni nini rais ameongea? Lakini kula tulipiga na tukasema mabadiliko inakuja. Tumengojea hiyo mabadiliko, ingawache tunasikia amefanya hii. Si afanya basi mpaka kwa unga ndio wengine tukule tupate nguvu ya kuenda wapi? Kazi. Hakuna unga, maisha iko juu, jua ndio hiyo. Tunaenda wapi? Hakuna mahali na watu wanakufa. Unajua yeye akiwa huko juu anasikia tu watu wanakufa. Ajafike penye watu wanakufa aone. Hizi manyumba venye watu wako hivi, watu wanakufa na njaa, wengine hata wanashindwa kuamka. Watoto kwa mashule waendi shule kwa sababu mtoto amelala njaa, amke njaa, ataenda aje shule? Inabidi alale. Mzazi hana, afanye nini? Upande wa maandamano wache isonge mbele. Kama rais amelala, amke angalie watu wa chini venye tunalia na venye tunaumia.
Maandamano sio solution. Kwanza agoje kwanza inchi ikue, at least kwa sababu inchi tulikuwa chini, uchumi kwa kila kitu imepanda. Sasa agoje uchumi ishuke tu, at least tuone kama rais Ruto atashukishia mambo ikuwe chini. Lakini maandamano mimi sioni haja ya maandamano kwa kwanza pale maandamano kwa gari kama ni tiaga zinapigwa ashuke chini. Maandamano wacha kuumiza watoto wazazi wengine, unavunjwa miguu, unapigwa na maskari, matia gas juu ya maandamano ambayo haina msimamo. Kwa hivyo mimi haja yangu ya maandamano sioni.
Mimi kwa upande yangu nasema maandamano iendelee, isonge mbele, ndio rais wetu afanye nini? Aamuke, ako kwa usingizi.
Kwa majina anaitwa Eli Ogutu. Kwa upande ya maandamano iko kwa katiba, inakubalika na ni mojawapo ya katiba. Mradi kuwe ni maandamano ya amani na mtu asiharibu kitu ya mtu. Juu hiyo ni haki yetu ya kikatiba ya kuandamana ili kusukuma serikali yenye kwa mamlakani iweze kutekeleza mambo kadhaa ambayo yanastahili yatekelezwe. Kwa mfano, serikali yenye iko sahihi ilisema baada ya muda fulani watakuwa wametengeneza bidhaa ama bei itakuwa imeshuka vitu fulani. Hadi wa sasa wa Kenya tunangoja na njaa imezidi. Ndio maana labda upinzani ikitokea iseme ni kuandamana, labda bei itashuka. Asante.
So nafikiri ni vyema Raila kufanya maandamano?
ni vyema, ni haki yake ya katiba, bora mradi kitu yoyote isiharibiwe. Maandamano ya amani ya kutetea gharama ya maisha iko juu. Tuone kama watasukuma hiyo serikali, tuone kama bei ya maisha itashuka, bei ya unga itashuka. Kwa saizi kila kitu iko juu, mafuta petroli ndio iko juu, chakula iko juu. Yaani tunajaribu biashara ikuji. Saa kama hiyo ndio njia ambayo itafanya gharama ya maisha iweze kushuka, mimi sioni shida na hiyo.
Mimi kwa majina naitwa Samuel Asava, na mimi maandamano naona iko sawa juu kwa katiba, si ndio? Juu serikali ikilegea mpaka irekebishwe, na ambapo serikali kama inalegea ifanyi kazi, na ambapo bila ulikuwa unakuja kwa wananchi ukitafuta kura, ulikuja ukiahidi chenye utafanya, na ambapo kama umeenda huko sasa umesahau hao watu vile wewe ulikuwa unawaahidi, kila kitu inapanda kukikuchao, na wewe ukiamkao kama ni ile pesa ulikuwa umelala nao kwa mfuko, ukipiga hesabu vile utajipanga, inabidi uchumi bado nao inaendelea kupanda, inabagi maisha bado wewe ndio unafinyika. So chenye tunaomba serikali, hii maandamano ikuwe ya amani, sio ya kuumiza mtu na sio ya kukimbizana na mtu kupora vitu ya watu. Bora tupate solution ndio inatuweka penye tunataka, lakini sio maandamano ikuwe ile ya watu kunyang'anya watu vitu zao, watu wengine kupata hapo njia ya kuumiza watu wengine.
Okay, kwa majina naitwa Lucas Wenena, na kulingana na mimi maandamano si njia nzuri, kwa sababu ukiangalia mahali ambapo nchi ilipo si mahali dhabiti kwa kufanya maandamano, kwa kuwa nchi iko chini. Vyema ingefanyika ni kuwa hao viongozi wakae chini, waongee, tujue vile tutasuluhisha haya maneno. Juu ukiangalia maandamano yakiwa yatarudisha nchi nyuma kwa njia fulani, kwa kuwa ukiangalia uchumi plus uongeze maandamano, na maandamano unaelewa vitu ambavyo huendelea. Sasa kukiwa na maandamano itarudisha pia nchi nyuma na haitakuwa vyema. So ningependelea viongozi wakae chini, waongee, watafute suluhisho ili tuwe na utendakazi wema.
Story na maandamano mimi naweza tamani iendelee, lakini itaendelea iishe, kutakuwa na suluhisho? Je, tungetamani kupata suluhisho, kwa sababu sidhani kama hawa watu wenye wanaandamana without a cause, wako na sababu. Hawako kwa barabara wakifanya hakuna, wanafanya kazi ambayo maybe hata kama tusaidike sisi. Actually hata wenye wanaongoza hayo maandamano, they have got nothing to lose. Wako na kila kitu by the way. Wanalilia sisi wa Kenya ambao tunafinyika hapa. Na kila mmoja tunahitaji at least tuone maisha imerudi chini, angalau kiasi, sababu sisi wote ni wa Kenya. Lakini tunatamani baada ya haya yatakapofanyika tupate suluhisho.
Nilikuwa naona hiyo njia ya Raila iko sawa, jili akishaandamana hivyo watu at least turudisha bei ya unga chini. Haka utaona kama tulikuwa tunanunua kilo moja 45 ama 40 bob, sasa ni 100. Sasa ambayo inashindwa ni aje?
Wewe ufikiri kwamba hii maandamano inaweza ikatatiza amani?
Itatatiza, lakini sasa unajua akishafanya hivyo at least rais ataona, atarudisha bei ya ya hali ya uchumi chini. Hawezi kaa chini kuongea. Jili Raila alikataa, Ruto akakataa, akasema hakuna handshake.
Mangicho na Kagi, hayo ni baadhi ya maoni ya Wakenya, ambapo tumeona wengi wanasema ya kwamba ni haki yake katiba kwa Raila kuandaa maandamano, na vile vile tumeona wengine pia wakisema ya kwamba Raila hapasi kuandaa maandamano kwa sababu huenda ikatatiza amani ya taifa. Lakini kumbe kwamba baadhi ya matakwa ambao Raila anasisitiza yatekelezwe na serikali ni kutaka gharama ya maisha ipunguzwe kwa kuitaka serikali kurejesha ruzuku ilikuwa kwa baadhi ya bidhaa muhimu nchini, pamoja na kutaka kusitishwa kwa mchakato wa kuwatafuta makamishna wa Tume Huru ya Uchaguzi na Mipaka IEBC nchini, pamoja na kutaka sava zifunguliwe. Kutoka hapa hivi sina la ziada ila kurejesha ushukani kwenu. Jina langu ni Vincent Kimutai nikiripotia Mid Morning Park, MBCI TV.
Thank you so much, our reporter there, Vincent Kimutai. in the streets, getting opinions from Kenyans on what we are talking about today, the call for mass action by the opposition. And I know, Bonamondi, you have opinion on also what Kenyans are saying outside there, but maybe a quick one. Is mass action the only voice that maybe most governments listen to?
Kitu ya kwanza ni kusema kwamba wale watu wametoa maoni mazuri, na there's also a danger here that the Azimio supporters are over-promising that mass action unga will come down, na tumeambiwa kwamba hakuna mahindi. So over-promising ndinapea saa hii serikali ya Kenya Kwanza tatizo, because they also overpromised nikiweka Biblia chini, bidhaa zitaenda chini.
So
that's what Kenya Kwanza was said. Saa hii ndio inawanyonga.
So we cannot hold them accountable to those promises.
I'm just saying is that Kenya Kwanza told us, gave us a promise. Biblia ikianguka bidhaa vitu zitashuka. Sio ilikuwa promise. That's why I'm saying it was overpromising. Tunaelewa?
Which was also in the manifesto.
Saa hii Azimio is overpromising mass action will make it possible for unga to come down. Sijui kama tunaelewana. Unajua we have to be realistic. Sisi kama analyst hapa hatuegemee upande wowote, na we have to tell people reality. Tunaelewana? Just the same way Kenya Kwanza overpromised about the cost of living coming down. It's the same way Azimio are promising through mass action, unga will come down. Now, government does not produce unga. Unaelewa? Saa ile inasema unga i come down, inasema under which platform. Tunaelewana? So that's over promising. That's why inasema aje, the issue about dialogue is everything.
So Bwana Omondi, before you continue, when you're saying that Kenya Kwanza government overpromised, in other words, you're saying basically what they told Kenyans they'll do for them was not realistic.
It was a lie. Not even, let us use the right word. It was a lie. You see, it was a lie. Because what happened is, that was the campaign. You want the votes. But on delivery, first you have to come to government first. Understand what is in store. Because the deputy president, who is now the current president, he cannot say he was not in government. He was there, and he knew we are in red in terms of external debt. And you know what?
Okay.
When we collect our taxes, it goes to the consolidated fund.
Okay.
The first thing that happens before even we discuss our own things internally as Kenya, there's a percentage we have to pay external debt. Ile inabaki ndio sasa tunaanza kujipangia. Tunaelewana? And obviously these big honjos knew that we were in red. At the same time promising us that Biblia ikianguka sijui nini itanini. Walikuwa wanatuhadaa. Tunaelewa?
Yes.
And the same thing saa hii nimeona watu pale wakiongea tena wameingia kwa mtego ya kuhadaiwa kwamba ati mass action ya Monday unga itashuka. That's why I'm saying we have to be realistic.
Okay.
And the solution here is people to sit down around table with economic experts.
But who in this case are supposed to sit down? Because if you were to go back in 2017, the president had the handshake with his political nemesis.
Let me be honest with you.
Yes.
You saw the press conference from the religious organization yesterday. You see? That's why I started by saying how I wish Raila could have listened to them, called them for a meeting today, told them we are in a problem as a country. You see? But we need solutions. You see? Can we make sure that, for example, you guys become the arbiters here? So we sit down and get a solution. If it's the cost of living, what is the solution? The solution about cost of living cannot be discussed in a street, cannot be discussed in a mass action. It needs concerted effort with experts' input. because we are in a hole, but we are keeping digging the hole.
But already we have, they call it the experts, the Economic Council, which is full of economic experts. They are there already. They are being paid by our taxes.
Led by David D.
Yes.
Yes.
What happened
It's
is that David D will come with the issue because he's the father of the bottom-up economic model. You see? He will come up with that. Currently, he's helping the executive and the president to advise. But you have seen from the clip, people are seeing there's no change. So what is required here is concerted effort from other, even some external people, so that there's a group think about this issue, so that people don't think in silos. Because right now, even this sits alone, he might not be able to go back to his blueprint and tell the president, I think here is not working. But now even they invite some other people, they can say, how do we tweak this so that it works? Yeah.
Mangicho, before you continue, I'm thinking of how we can be able to engage these talks. Yes, maybe through the religious leaders it can work, but finally, it is going to land in the table of the president and the Raila Odinga. But by the look of things, as I have followed the matter, is that the Kenya Kwanza brigade, especially the members of parliament and politicians, are very adamant to allow any situation where the president is going to hold any talk with the opposition leader Raila Odinga. For one reason, there is always that suspicion, maybe from the history, that any time that you bring Raila on board, is that he is looking for a handshake. And this handshake mostly is not meant to be able to help the public, is for his own good. And therefore, as much as we are advocating for this talk, Mr. Omondi, I feel also there are many handles ahead. Politicians from Kenya Kwanza are very adamant, no talks between the opposition leader and the president. Yeah. Now, what are you going to do now?
But as you answer that, because you've alluded to the importance maybe of the government bringing other people on board, even maybe from the international quarters, to be able
Even
to look
not
at
international. Let me tell you, this country has intellectuals that are underutilized.
They are underutilized. So does it also now therefore imply that to where we've reached, does it mean that maybe the government now is not able maybe to look into these very, very burning needs in the country?
Well, maybe I'm not the government spokesperson, but let me maybe say is that they are overwhelmed because of what they found in terms of the external debt.
And this is not something they're ready to admit.
They are not ready to admit.
They can't.
Nobody will ever admit because you tell them to resign. Because if the kitchen is too hot, you leave. So they cannot admit. So the issue here is they are overwhelmed because they estimated that after being sworn in, after this period, the cost of living...
100 days, elapsed in December.
Yeah, these are the other things. But now when they entered the kitchen, now the kitchen is becoming too hot. Okay. So what they are doing here is firefighting. And they've really tried because there are a lot of missions. They are going out, doing here and there. They are re-establishing our bilateral talks with other partners who can come in and chip in. They are now in the good books of the IMF and the World Bank, which is now coming in to chip the gaps. So they are trying. It's only the timelines that they gave that now is hanging them. Because you have heard from the clip, walisema unga itaenda chini, sasa tuoni kama inaendelea. But the other thing that I wanted to raise that Kagi has raised, the embedment of these talks is one thing. There are a lot of demands from Raila, which I have not heard from these people. These people have only talked about cost of living. But Raila is that there's a cow that got lost that is being sought for. And that's now, to me, the embedment of the talks. If, for example, Raila can say, for the sake of this country, let us address just the cost of living. Tomorrow, Ruto can call him, then they discuss the cost of living. Because if you hear the talks, even from the hardliners, they have no issue about the issue about the cost of living. They can talk to anybody. The only now impediment here is about talking about the elections. Because the elections,
And
as I told you,
and the opening of the server.
Opening of the server, because that's part of the elections. No. So, according to Azimio, this was an inconclusive election that they feel that was not free and fair.
Exactly.
Now, what my problem I'm getting, after going to the Supreme Court and getting the verdict, you see, that was given, because we normally say in law, you might not agree, but you have to respect. You see? So that respect part has not been there from the Azimio, guys, isn't it? Yeah, because you must find other legal ways of removing the president, but not some other extra legal ways like mass action, because because we are not a banana republic. You will go to State House and remove the president and sit on the throne. We are not a banana republic. We are not Sri Lanka, where you are going to bathe in we saw what happened in Sri Lanka. We are not that type of a country. You see, the moment somebody now sits as a president and becomes the commander-in-chief, that person must be treated in a certain way that even if you are aggrieved, you see, we need that conversation. So to me, is that we need this conversation geared toward cost of living. How do we address it? You see, the issue about, for example, the servers. That is the IBC to address, because even the Supreme Court, when they wrote a letter to Smartmatic, the Smartmatic responded that we can't. And that was the Supreme Court. They were told we cannot share the server. If you remember the case clearly. Maybe if the IBC can be able maybe to show us what happened, and if there is any evidence, that's something that can be mitigated later.
I know we've really dwelt on that particular subject, but of course it's very important, and of course as we look even forward, and Kagi, I'm being told that the Azimio brigade will be in Nakuru tomorrow. Yeah. So one of these particular rallies.
Mazembe Grounds.
Mazembe Grounds, that is before Monday. Thank you so much, Bwana Omondi. But before we come to the conclusion of our discussion, we also want to discuss matters to do with the security operation. And as we speak, quite a number of families have really cried foul on how they have been flushed out of their homes for the sake of, so that security can actually be conducted in those particular areas.
Yes, and one major question that comes across, yes, the operation must continue. When something is, we're involving the military, the operation takes a new direction. But my personal question is, yes, it's a good strategy to be able to flush out those guys from there. But when these guys have been told to vacate from those areas, which are quite a number, where do they go to? I was thinking that the government would have prepared a way and a place where they can be able to host them as they deal with the real culprits on those hills. But now they have been told to leave. They don't know where to go. They must leave. Is that quite in order?
What is your feeling about how the government is actually conducting this particular operation? Are we staring at a major humanitarian crisis?
Actually, it's a big humanitarian crisis, because what happened, they were given 24 hours. And you see, as Kagi has rightly pointed out, there's something called the humanitarian standards and the UN guidelines on eviction and resettlement. And if you check the international and humanitarian laws and even our constitution, basically the rights of those residents have been infringed upon. They have been infringed upon. You check here 24 hours. There are school-going kids whom I saw yesterday being removed from schools and being taken nowhere, because the parents and the guardians were asking, tunaenda wapi? Because what happened is, we must adopt what we call intelligence-led operations, whereby, for example, those intelligence-led operations is whereby we do our own mapping as intelligence, then start what we call public forums to inform the people that from our intelligence, this is what is happening, and we want to do ABCD.
Okay.
Then make sure that all the humanitarian agencies are there. The Red Cross, World Food Programs, World Vision, and government agencies through the Ngao officials.
Right.
You see?
Right.
Look for a place, because you cannot just tell me, vacate this place because now it's a security zone. So where am I going? So that where you are taking these people, because it's a temporal measure, you see, they will find maybe some very, very good facilities, even if it's tents, you see, but there must be amenities there. You see, there are toilets, there are also some areas where the children can continue schooling, you see, there are certain amenities there where they can live in a decent manner. So if you do that, then you start your operation, then you won't be infringing on those people's rights. Because totally what has happened is more reactionary than being proactive.
And I know maybe sometimes the government is quite cagey when maybe it is disclosing the impact of some of these operations. But from where you sit, Bwana Omondi, are we seeing some results being yielded from this particular operation?
What happened is that we need to have a long-term strategy. And here when I'm talking about long-term strategy, I'm talking about, yes, there's a military operation ongoing, but we also need some soft power. Soft power here is about the empowerment. Some of the issues happening there are issues about customs and traditions. If not addressed, it will reoccur again after the operation has been stopped. I remember I was a young guy in 1980s. There was a member of parliament for the larger Pokot community called Francis Polisi Lotodo.
Polisi?
Yeah, Francis Polisi Lotodo. You see?
Yes.
And he was being accused by the administration then of perpetuating the same things that are happening now. You see? Even there was a time the police went there and did their surveillance. Then they found a lot of graves. And they asked, was there a calamity here that a lot of people died over a sudden and you buried them? Then when they started to unearth those particular things, then they found that there were guns that were buried there. And Lotodo was being accused. What am I saying? Is that if we don't address underlying issues, because some of those communities are saying there's no development in that area.
Okay.
Children are not going to school. And as a subsequent, these Morans get a ready militia to recruit because they are available. They are not going to school. This tradition about when I want to marry, I must raid Kagi's herd so that I get cows, so that I pay dowry. I don't pay dowry with my cows. When I want to marry, I Kagi's herd. You see, it's a tradition. When, for example, I raid and come back with a lot of a herd of cattle, I'm celebrated. And even Mangicho is the good boy in the household, he's reviled and abused. Unakaaga aje hapo kama maembe, we kuwa kama kagi. So those are things that we need to talk about. Right. Let us also build infrastructure there, the roads, water and everything. Build schools.
So meaning what is happening right now could be temporal?
That's temporal. They will do that and go back because they want to be there for so long. You see? They will do that, then go back. Then after a few years, kitu kwa ground itarudi tu hivyo.
Yeah, and I think the most unfortunate thing is the disruption of learning activities within that corridor for many years.
Exactly.
And we are doing injustice to those children.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And if they are unable to do that, I think we can also create some boarding schools for these children. Away from that area, to be able to secure their future. Right? We remove them from that area. We take them to government boarding schools, special boarding schools, to be able to secure their education and their future. You know, again, you are removing those children from that area to be able to disconnect them from the so-called culture, tradition, and the way the norms of that area regarding to things of cattle rustling. So I think we can do more and we can be able to manage.
And another thing, what we need to do, I've seen in other countries, our military bases should not be in urban areas like here. We should set there the military, because the military has a lot of hardware and they also have some development that they can be doing. Let us not people sitting here like Lanet here just eating. What happened is the infrastructure there, they have to be there, and the army should be doing that infrastructure work. You see, like the roads, the bridges, the schools, the hospitals, you see? And the military should be there because the situation that is there, whether it's Kerio Valley, the Amaya Triangle, that area Samburu, bordering Samburu, the Turkana area, those guys, the boy is born, raised up with a gun. Now we were taking there a Kiganjo trained person who went there 6 months. This guy has been having that gun for the last 10 years.
That
This
is
guy...
the first tool he was introduced to.
Yeah, and he understands the terrain. The police cannot manage those guys. They can't. Yeah, you see. So what we were saying here is we get an arrangement between the police and the army. We set up military camps there. They do development. By doing that, that will be diplomacy. And these people now will start interacting with them. But in case we get any rogue guys, the military handles them. But hii mambo ati wanaenda ati wanarudi camp, tutakuja hapa tena kuangalia hii mambo in the next 2 years.
Yes. What about Bonamondi, the place of the politician? Because this has also been another setback as far as actually having a lasting solution to this is concerned.
In that area, apparently, because we work there, we work there under our peace and security program. You are a hero if you support those guys. That's why you will never hear, even in a press conference, whatever the situation, a politician in that area condemning those raids.
Okay.
Sijui kama umeshaisikia, hata huyu mwenye juzi amekuwa akishikwa juu mambo ya helicopter. Uliona akitamka kukondem? No. Sijui kama tunaelewana? Yeah. So they are beneficiaries of these people, and it's rumored that some of them support this. And therefore, what we are saying here is we have a very weak arm of government called investigation. Our investigation, we need to enhance it so that we can get enough evidence to help us in our criminal justice system.
Wow.
Because any time there is a serious case, it collapses on the doors of the DPP. You see? Because there is no threshold. Because if we have evidence and enough threshold, there is public litigation that we can do. We cannot wait for the DPP. Because this is something that we were given by the Constitution, and it was also anchored by Willy Mutunga in how Kagi can go to court and litigate without having a lawyer. Na nyakati Kagi ana litigate, hizo complicated languages za lawyer will be put aside, watu wataongea plain English. No. So, tunaelewana. So if we get such things, so the issue about investigation, we need to enhance it.
Okay.
You even heard about hiyo ya Matiang'i kwamba kukuwa na ushahidi. Tunaelewa? Yeah. So how can we make sure that the investigative part, in the other jurisdiction kama huko ng'ambo, they invest a lot in investigation, because that's where we can get prosecution to act as an example to other rogue politicians. But if we continue like this, these technical appearances, EACC, DCI, then all of a sudden DPP have dropped the case. So it becomes very difficult. If he drops a case and maybe there is evidence somewhere, and you say, no, why would you drop this case and the evidence? He's saying ABCD, we can challenge the DPP. Yeah, because there are certain cases also that he has dropped because now he wants also to be a good boy to the new administration.
Well, Bonamondi, just one more point before we bring it to a closer home. There is this particular group called Confirmed, which has continued to wreak havoc in, especially in Nakuru town. What do you make of this? And is it absolutely difficult to once and for all deal with this particular gang?
What has happened is that nowadays any criminal is called confirm. But let us demystify the word confirm. It started from some young men swindling people through the phone, through the M-Pesa platform. That's how confirm started. Then there were concerted efforts that we discussed even with the service provider Safaricom. Then they tightened their systems. So the youths who were calling confirm, because they were sending us messages to confirm we have received something, had no alternative. So the only alternative is now to form now criminal gangs, now to do mugging and burglary and stealing. That's how now they mutated from the platform here now to the burglary, stealing, and whatever, the criminal activities. Okay. Now, currently, there's a lot of gangs around here who emanated from that, who have now also recruited others. You see, who have now recruited others who are committing these criminal activities. No, now, all of them were not confirmed, but the ringleaders were part of the confirmed group. Now, the issue about, you remember the period where we now had also COVID. Yeah. And now, after COVID, now we have the global inflation. Because what is affecting us here is global. You have to be able to know. It is not about Kenyan issue. It's a global crisis about inflation generally. If you check the nurses in England, have been rioting for the last 1 month about, yeah. So the issue here is that we have had a problem about addressing these gang members. The problem has been is that we think that hard power will address it. We also need soft power. Okay. Because the soft power is, are we able to map out these gangs, for example, so that we can be able to deal with those guys so that they are not able to recruit others, and now the criminals one, we can be able to make sure that we prosecute them. Let me ask you a simple question. Since you had this issue about confirm, how many cases have been successfully been prosecuted in Nakuru? And we have somebody in Kerema Pale. So we want to see 1, 2, 3, 4 people were confirmed, they were apprehended, there was enough evidence, they were prosecuted, now they have been jailed. How many? If we don't speak about those statistics, then we have a problem. Because there are some other rogue police officers who become part of this because they were now beneficiaries of the proceeds. So it's a big issue. That I think is another topic. Another day.
But we really want to appreciate Bwana Joseph Omondi, a political analyst and also a governance expert, and also the director Midrift. Thank you so much for making time to be with us and helping us to make sense of these very, very vital subjects in the country.
Karibu sana.
Thank you so much. And we also want to appreciate you so much for making time to be with us. Thank you also for your participation during this particular discussion. This is our country. And of course, it's very important for us to look at what is happening and help our viewer to make informed choices. My name is Mangi Chomola. We'll do it again next week at a time like this. Have a blessed afternoon.
All right. I want to thank you so very much for finding time to be able to follow us in the mid-morning park this day. My name is Paul Kagi. Have a blessed day.